Welcome to Tokyo Wave, recorded in a live studio in Harajuku, Japan, with your hosts Aaron and Parker. All right, everyone, welcome to episode 29 of Tokyo Wave. We're your hosts, Aaron Randall
and Parker Allen. On Tokyo Wave, we bring you weekly updates from our studio in Harajuku.
Join us in segments featuring this week's top news,
political happenings,
business,
and other random garbage.
To get us started, here are this week's top news highlights.
Japan to exempt business travelers and returnees from 14-day quarantine.
Japanese Prime Minister Suga tells government to prepare to get rid of hanko.
Prefectures outed for spending up to 20 million yen on official cars during pandemic.
This week in Japan. So our first news story, Japan to exempt business travelers and returnees from the 14-day quarantine.
Kyodo News has reported that Japan is set to conditionally exempt business travelers and returnees from the 14-day quarantine policy that is currently imposed on all overseas arrivals to stem the spread of the coronavirus.
Sources also said that both Japanese citizens and foreign nationals with resident permits will be eligible for the exemption, with no restrictions on countries.
With the 14-day quarantine policy a significant stumbling block for overseas business travel, Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga, placing importance on restarting economic activity, has pushed for the exemptions to move forward.
The government aims to draw up measures easing entry restrictions by the end of this month.
Those eligible for this exemption will be required to submit a detailed plan of their movements in the 14 days following entry into Japan, including accommodation and place of employment.
Given the anticipated burden on airport staff to handle paperwork and other inspection measures, the government plans to impose a daily limit on the number of people eligible for the exemption based on testing capacity at airports and other ports of entry.
Sorry, Mr. Jones, you're number 1002, so have fun spending the next 14 days in purgatory.
But I just got out and they said if I come today I can actually get cleared.
Get to the gulag, Gaijin!
Not again!
Japan has already agreed to resume business travel with both Singapore and South Korea, under which travelers are exempted from the 14-day quarantine.
So does this mean that me and you can go back and forth between South Korea and Singapore?
I'm not sure, actually. It's a good question.
Yeah, I saw the news about South Korea the other night, and my first thought was, yes, trip to Seoul. Let's go party in Seoul.
Important business.
Tokyo also plans to ease a travel advisory for some of the 159 countries and regions placed at level 3 amid the coronavirus pandemic, a warning that advises against all travel.
The Foreign Ministry is considering lowering the advisory for some countries to level 2, meaning that non-essential travel should be avoided. It's an essential party.
Wait, are we both muting our phones but they're still rumbling?
Yeah.
Okay. Fuck. No country is subject to Japan's highest level 4 advisory, which warns against travel as well as urges all Japanese nationals inside the country to evacuate. In fact, a level 4 traveler trying to enter Japan will be exterminated on site.
You know, these travel bans are just so confusing.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Level 4, level blue, code red, code red.
I feel like they're gonna put a stamp on your forehead when you get in with a number.
These daily quotas are so confusing too. Like, seriously, who's counting and how do you know what your number is until you show up? I guess you don't.
No, absolutely. Actually, just out of curiosity, I joined a Facebook group, it's called like Coming Back to Japan group. And it's like a help group where they share information. And people are posting stories now, residents that are finally getting back into the country. And looking at the different stories, as you said, it looks to be all over the place. Some people are very easily with like no checks. They have the paperwork and everything, and they're checking the big boxes, but they're not really being having to go through all the bureaucratic nonsense. And then others are being go through 10 days of hell to get back into the country. So
when the required paperwork is also very unclear, I have a good friend who recently returned to Japan from the United States, and they were almost not allowed to board their flight.
Oh my God.
Because the gate attendant said,
"You don't have the piece of paper, so unfortunately we will not allow you to board this flight."
and my friend was like,
"Fuck that shit, son! Put me on this plane! I paid lots of money for this ticket!"
What is it? So, I mean, you have to get a doctor's note with the PCR test, and then you have to get it stamped by the local embassy in your country?
No, that's separate. So you have to get a different approval from the embassy to come to Japan.
Ah, okay. And then you get the doctor's note, and it has to be like stamped by the doctor and everything?
Well, they don't have stamps depending on the country, right? So it's like a, signature.
It's a signature,
Yeah.
right.
You could probably just write Zeus on there.
I'm sure lots of people have done many things to get back in.
My doctor's name is Jesus, promise. It says it right here.
In my religion, we don't have doctors. That's why I wrote in Jesus. Up next, Japanese Prime Minister Suga tells government to prepare to get rid of the hanko.
Uh-oh. So Kyoto also reported that Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga has instructed his government on Wednesday to draw up plans to stop using hanko seals on administrative documents, a tradition that has been criticized as outdated and necessitating face-to-face interaction that risks spreading the virus.
The move, part of Suga's push to improve bureaucratic efficiency, is expected to lead to more government services becoming available online.
Suga told an advisory panel of members from the private sector and academics called the Council for Promotion of Regulatory Reform, "I want all ministries to compile a comprehensive review of their administrative procedures in the near future."
So, hanko are widely used in Japan for signing contracts, business transactions, and various administrative procedures, including enrolling in the National Pension Program.
As the seals need to be stamped onto physical copies of documents, they are seen as hindering efforts to maintain social distancing amid the COVID-19 crisis.
Of the more than 10,000 types of administrative procedures that require hanko, more than 90% can be simplified, according to Taro Kono, the minister in charge of administrative reform.
10,000 types.
That's nuts.
I would not want to have that job. So Minister Kono has said he hopes to submit legislation to address the issue to next year's ordinary diet session, and that he also wants to reduce the use of fax machines. We talked about that last week,
Right. This is a great move. I applaud his enthusiasm.
We're gonna have to have a new segment on Tokyo Wave,
The war on fax machine terrorism.
We've got to have like an epic song that's played on fax machines as the intro music for that segment. You know what I mean? It's all fax noises. At Wednesday's meeting, Suga stressed the need for online medical consultations, which have been deregulated as a special measure against the coronavirus, to become a permanent option.
This is something that strikes close to home, actually, because in the middle of the lockdown, I actually needed to fill a prescription at a hospital, which I did not want to go to in the middle of lockdown.
Right.
And I called the hospital several times, and they took several days to come to the conclusion that they would not give me the prescription unless I went to the hospital.
Oh, wow.
And so I just said, screw it.
Yeah, that is something that for our listeners who are outside of Japan, in the States, in Florida, you can just call in a prescription and just go pick it up at your local supermarket.
Walmart.
Yeah.
Or Walmart. Or Walmart.
Get your pills, get your guns, get your...
All at the drive-thru.
Yeah.
What do you mean I have to get out of my car to get this prescription? This is America, goddammit!
I went on the app and I ordered 2 guns and 50 pills, and you can't bring it in my car?
I'll pull up right to the front door. You just put it in the trunk. Next to the other guns and the other pills.
Don't ask any questions, all right? Suga, the new prime minister who took office in mid-September, also reiterated his push for distance learning to be made more widely available, saying such technology should be taken full advantage of in the digital age.
Coming soon to Japanese schools. Zoom meetings all day. And you know, that's kind of scary because, you know, in Japanese schools, I think most primary and even secondary schools, most of the subjects are taught by the same teacher.
Right.
So for U.S. schools, it's, you know, it's based on the class. But if it were an online class for a Japanese school, it literally would be all day.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's true.
Maybe instead of cleaning up the classroom, the teacher would just be like, let's just clean up your room.
What are they going to do?
Taro-kun, your room looks dirty. Wipe those floors.
It's like half
Punk.
It's like half of Japanese school is, you know, learning how to march and cleaning up the classroom. Yeah.
They don't really teach you how to march.
You just learn. Or you get stomped down. Are these things I'm saying funny, or are they just really stupid? Anyways.
That's up to the listeners.
All right. And up next, prefectures outed for spending up to 20 million yen on official cars during the pandemic.
The Mainichi has reported that even as steadily worsening fiscal conditions have forced most local governments across Japan to tighten their belts, 12 prefectural governments have found room in their budgets to buy luxury model Toyotas, including Yamaguchi Prefecture, who bought a brand new Toyota Century, which clocks in at more than 20 million yen as an official car.
Yamaguchi Prefecture in western Japan bought a late model Century this fiscal year to ferry around the prefectural assembly chairman and honored guests, such as members of the imperial family. The Mainichi survey of all Japan's 47 prefectures found that 8 others, Saitama, Ishikawa, Nagano, Shizuoka, Aichi, Tokushima, Kagawa, and Nagasaki, also have a Century in their public fleets. Meanwhile, Iwate, Gifu, and Oita prefectures have bought themselves a Lexus or a Toyota Velfire van, all priced at more than 10 million yen. That's about 95,000 USD. When new, the vehicles are used to transport prefectural governors and assembly chairmen and tend to be repurposed to carry guests or as spare vehicles when they get older.
If you're not familiar, the Toyota Century is like the Rolls-Royce of Japanese cars, and Toyota developed it as really the supreme carrier for the titans of Japanese business.
Right.
Not exactly the best look for a local government.
It's funny. I imagine them all at this meeting, like 100 of them, and like they're going through all the big decisions. They're like, okay, what car are we going to buy with this extra money?
The most expensive one, of course. The Toyota Velfire van is such a funny name because you know they just found Hellfire and they're like, we need to make this minivan cool. Why don't we just call it Hellfire but with a V?
Ooh. They do that a lot in Japan. They'll change one letter of a word in English, right?
It's really funny. I mean, it's like a gangster minivan. You've seen these, right?
No, I haven't actually. I'm pulling up the pictures now. Yeah. It's got a crazy, what do you call it? What do you call it on the front?
A grill.
The grill is crazy on these things.
It's kind of funny because, you know, in America, all of the big important people have these big SUVs that look like they're going to impale you.
Yeah.
I think we talked about that in a previous episode, actually.
Probably, yeah.
And so with the Velfire and similar products by Nissan and other major Japanese automakers, essentially they've taken that same sort of imposing, scary-looking facade, but it's on a minivan. Which if you've never seen one before, it's like, what?
Yeah.
Because, in the West, minivan equals soccer mom.
Exactly. I remember an old army recruiting video, and like it was like all these like cool action shots of the Navy SEALs in the Middle East, like kicking ass and blowing shit up. And they're like, at the same time, Joe is buying a minivan in Midwest America. And it was like this like sappy guy buying a minivan. And so anytime I think of a minivan, I always think of that commercial. Just like these badass Navy SEALs like doing shit, and this sappy guy is just like, yeah.
Join the Navy. Fight for your country. Don't buy girly minivans.
Yeah.
Also, explosions.
Yeah. If I can remember that, I mean, that was probably like 15 years ago.
That must have been during the Iraq War, because they had that big like recruitment boom.
Oh, yeah. I think that's when they figured out they didn't need the draft anymore. They could just use advertising to get everyone pumped up. I remember going to movies and like the first 10 minutes of the movie was just like an army commercial, but it was like
Rambo 6, brought to you by the United States Armed Forces.
Sylvester Stallone.
We like explosions too.
Do you want to blow shit up and kick ass?
So back to these luxury Toyotas. The Toyotas owned by 4 of the 12 prefectures that we just mentioned are between 15 and 23 years old. So I guess they're using them. For example, the Century in Nagano Prefecture was purchased in 2000 as the governor's car and is now shared among prefectural bureau and department heads. However, a prefectural official in charge of the vehicle pool told the Mainichi,
Compared to our other vehicles, which are very versatile, we don't use the Century very often, and it's only put about 60,000 kilometers on the odometer in the 20 years the prefecture has had it. That doesn't even approach the standard for replacing a public vehicle, which is logging 110,000 kilometers within 11 years from purchase. Really, it's a leftover.
The official added that the prefecture probably won't buy another Century when the current one finally needs to be replaced. Or will they?
On the one hand, local governments have responded to criticism of their budget difficulties and wasteful spending by buying cheaper cars for their public fleets. On the other hand, 8 prefectures have bought Centuries or other luxury vehicles in the past decade.
The Century purchased by Yamaguchi Prefecture in July of this year set the prefectural treasury back 20.9 million yen. However, as of October 5th, there were no plans to have the car carry imperial family members or foreign VIPs in the near future, and it has been used solely for the prefectural assembly chairman and all of his hostess friends.
Yeah. That's what they use on Friday nights to go to the host bars.
Former Tokyo Governor Masazoya was pressured to resign after it came out that he was using his official car to go to his country home in Yugawara.
Oh, wow.
Every other day.
I need the time to relax.
And the country home wasn't even in Tokyo.
That's nuts. So regarding vehicles to carry special guests, the Mainichi survey found that most prefectures use less pricey options, such as buying a Toyota Crown costing 6.3 million yen, that's about 60,000 USD, or using a car service. Only 5 prefectures owned a car solely for transporting VIPs. But Yamaguchi Prefecture stated that it needed such a vehicle and explained, the prefecture put thought into safety and selected the Century as a result. Furthermore, we purchased vehicles because there are no car hire services in the prefecture.
Yes, that was why we needed to purchase the 21 million yen Toyota Century, because it is very safe.
Seriously? Safety?
I wonder if there's tinted windows as well. They got to be tinted, right?
Oh, you know it. I think they're stock tinted, actually. Have you ever seen a Toyota Century? The new one's actually really cool.
I think, yeah, on the road recently I have.
It's like, it really is. The previous Toyota Century wasn't as luxurious as, a Rolls Royce or a Bentley, but the new one really kind of upped its game, and it's the same size and really has the same amenities as a super luxury car. I mean, it looks like the sort of thing that like Kim Jong-un would enjoy riding around in.
For sure.
Maybe Yamaguchi Prefecture expects him to visit. I mean, who knows?
Yeah.
Come on, Chairman Kim. Yamaguchi Prefecture, it's beautiful. Just, abduct a few people. It'll be great.
Having worked for a few really traditional Japanese companies, I am actually familiar with the big black spectacular car that sets in some random hidden away parking spot that everyone uses when they go out Friday night with shacho. People that are invited, of course. I've literally had this experience.
No, definitely. Well, I always love to go up Kagurazaka because, in pre-COVID times, every Friday night you just drive down that street and you can barely go up the hill because there are black cars, CEO cars, solid.
Oh, wow.
There's no extra room. It's what did these guys show up at 4 and just start partying?
They're all going to the same kebakura.
Very important business meeting.
All right, and up next on our segment, Japanese politics, wow. We'll be talking about how the Quad meeting in Tokyo prizes symbolism over substance. You're now listening to Tokyo Wave. Japanese politics. Wow.
The Japan Times has recently covered the recent Quad meeting held in Tokyo for the first time between foreign ministers of Japan, India, Australia, and the United States.
For all of U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo's fiery rhetoric targeting China during Tuesday's meeting in Tokyo of 4 of the most powerful democratic countries in the Indo-Pacific region, few concrete takeaways emerged from the talks.
There was a lot of question whether Pompeo would come to Japan because this was right when President Trump was diagnosed with the coronavirus.
Ah, right. Yeah, and we know now that most of Trump's inner circle has been exposed, and about half of them have the virus now.
And so there was a joke among the journalists who I follow on Twitter who were saying that, Pompeo's going to bring the Rona to Japan because obviously he's not going to quarantine for 14 days.
Yeah.
So this dialogue seems to have been more focused on symbolism than substance, and the symbolism of just showing up and also not inviting China seems to have been part of the intention here.
Still, China remained the elephant in the room. Although Pompeo said, "It is more critical now than ever that Quad partners collaborate to protect our people and partners from the Chinese Communist Party's exploitation, corruption, and coercion," this stood in sharp contrast to his 3 counterparts, all of whom avoided calling out China directly.
I'll leave it to the United States government to pin the tail on the donkey. So Beijing views the Quad as an attempt to contain its rise, and overt talk of further bolstering it for such a purpose remains a sensitive issue for the 3 countries due to their strong economic ties with Beijing.
In response to the Quad meeting, the Chinese embassy in Japan released a statement Wednesday saying that Beijing has long maintained that multilateral cooperation should be open, tolerant, and transparent, rather than conducted in closed and exclusive small circles, and should not be targeted at third parties.
Well, that's about as passive-aggressive as a statement can get.
Mm-hmm.
So also in the same statement, the embassy said that we hope that relevant countries will do more to enhance mutual understanding and trust among countries in the region and promote regional peace, stability, and development, and not the opposite. Quad!
Because if you do, there will be repercussions that you will not recover from.
It sounds like a kung fu movie.
You will not defeat our Wu-Tang style!
Oh, Chao Ming has returned, and he thinks he can take back claim? Well, he is far mistaken.
I have the power of the quad, and I will use it against you to show that I have the true power and claim here.
Trying to give everyone a visual of a kung fu movie. Dubbed, of course.
Very poorly.
Mentioned or not, experts say Beijing was surely at the front of the Quad members' minds.
Derek Grossman, a senior defense analyst with the Rand Corporation think tank, said that although none of the four countries specifically verbalized China, I think that it is still quite clear that China is at the very top of their agenda.
But China, with its recent and longtime actions, may have already forced the hands of each member. From its border disputes with India to its maritime assertiveness with Japan, to its diplomatic and economic tussles with Australia, and its superpower rivalry with the US. Quad participants have reasons to be wary of China and to do something about it.
But when it comes to upgrading the Quad meeting to a security alliance, the four nations are not on the same page, to say the least.
Although Pompeo said in an interview Tuesday with the Nikkei newspaper that his goal was to institutionalize the Quad as a security framework and what he described as a fabric that can counter the challenge that the Chinese Communist Party presents to all of us, neither the subject of institutionalization nor a security framework likened to a mini NATO by China was raised during Tuesday's four-nation discussions.
Asked about Pompeo's remarks, Chief Cabinet Secretary Katsunobu Kato on Wednesday deflected the question, saying that the government is not sure what he meant.
Some experts have poured cold water on the possibility of a Quad security architecture, noting the varied interests of the nations involved and the already plentiful number of organizations in the region, including the Association of Southeast Asian Nations and the East Asian Summit.
Sebastian Maslow, an expert on Japanese politics at Sendai Shirayori Women's University, said that the notion of a mini NATO is unlikely in the near future. We have seen plenty of regional institutions over the course of the last 3 decades.
So the four Quad countries held their first ministerial meeting in September last year in New York and agreed to convene again next year in their bid to regularize the occasion. Kato clarified in the Wednesday afternoon briefing that the dialogue will not necessarily be a once-a-year event and that the four will continue discussions at the working level in the meantime.
It's like the Super Friends.
Yeah.
The night falls over Gotham City, and danger, communist danger, is amount. But
The Quad will save the day! Assemble Quad! No, it's a bird. It's a plane. It's the Quad.
It's a bird. It's a plane.
No, it's the Quad!
Oh!
I mean, to be honest, there already is kind of a mini NATO, from a geopolitical strategic perspective, right?
We could call it like a Natelit.
Natelit. Yeah, we've got a Natelit here. We set along with the Natelit.
During his visit, Pompeo also echoed earlier remarks by his Japanese counterpart, Toshimitsu Motegi, suggesting that other nations could be added to the grouping, though he qualified that as coming at an undefined, appropriate time.
Motegi on Tuesday also alluded to that possibility, noting that European nations such as France and Germany, which are both keenly interested in the Indo-Pacific and have cast a wary eye toward China, share values such as democracy, the rule of law, and freedom of navigation.
Hey, you guys like freedom too? We're gonna make a Quad. You guys should join. We're gonna bring freedom to China.
But then you can't call it the Quad anymore.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, well, they could increase it to 7, and then it could be like the septuplets or something.
Or it could be
right?
like the quad plus plus. They could keep adding a plus every time a new.
the quad plus 3.
Oh, there's a dude.
Quad plus.
What the fuck? So lo and behold, they are calling it the quad plus. So the so-called Quad Plus meetings focusing on the coronavirus pandemic, which included South Korea, Vietnam, New Zealand, and others, have already been held, but a more formal expansion could also be in the cards.
They're going to have to get a new name.
Yeah. Too many.
It's like Disney Plus, Quad Plus. Only for superpowers, though, right? No communists allowed. Except for Vietnam.
Yeah. Vietnam's cool now, man.
They kind of like freedom. However, formal participation by Southeast Asian nations in the Quad appears a bridge too far for the moment, as they hedge their bets against aligning too closely with increasingly erratic United States movements, or a China that is growing in assertiveness but is crucial to their economic well-being.
Much of the future of the Quad hinges on what happens less than a month away on November 3rd, when the U.S. either re-elects President Donald Trump or chooses former Vice President Joe Biden as its new leader.
Well, only one of these two options includes extra flies. The Biden campaign recently came out with a fly swatter as a promotional item for the campaign.
Yeah, they came out right after... I think on my way here, I was looking at memes of the fly that landed on Pence's head, and just thinking to myself, how did that happen?
They had temperature checks, but they weren't checking for flies at the door. It just flew in.
I gotta say...
Maybe it was a Chinese fly. It was a spy fly.
Dude, people were already saying like this is a mini spy drone. That's already an internet rumor or conspiracy theory. I only watched 10 minutes of the debate. As of recording this, the debate just happened this morning, Japan time, so we haven't been able to digest it yet. But already, man, oh my God, those two were so much more articulate and calm than the Biden-Trump debate, which was, as we both know, kind of a disaster.
Or excellent television, depending on who you ask. So analysts are already saying that one of the prime reasons why Tuesday's Quad meeting produced few concrete takeaways was indeed because of the uncertainty surrounding the U.S. foreign policy direction after the election.
As for Japan and Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga, the Quad meeting further cemented the new leader's vow to maintain continuity in his approach to foreign policy as he builds on predecessor Shinzo Abe's free and open Indo-Pacific vision, which would secure Japan's role and push back against China's own ambitions as a rising power.
So the defense analyst Maslow said that from Japan's point of view, the Quad is a useful instrument to further its own geostrategic approach.
But at the same time, Suga will remain handcuffed until after the US election, right?
Yes, and Maslow echoed this reality, saying that, bottom line, no concrete measures can be expected from Suga until Japan is certain which direction U.S. foreign policy will shift post-election. And even if Trump is re-elected, the modus operandi for Japan will remain to balance its security and economic interest vis-a-vis China and the U.S.
I actually had the opportunity to meet up with some friends from Okinawa. And we were talking about, the U.S. elections and all this. And it seems, of course, not everyone, but the majority of people in Okinawa are actually pro-Trump because he's taken such a hard stance on China. And, geopolitically, Okinawa is really far south, right? It's close to Taiwan. It's close to the quote-unquote danger zone, right? Where people are generally concerned that China might start making moves towards Taiwan and even Okinawa. People living there are thinking this, so.
Cue Top Gun theme.
Someone get Tom Cruise over here.
Highway to the danger zone. Right into the danger zone.
But it was really interesting hearing, their opinions obviously the US, everybody knows, is gigantic and spread out all over the place, but
It's also really far away from China.
right.
Japan does not have that luxury.
Yeah.
We're really fucking close to China.
Yeah, and Okinawa is just so far. I think people forget how
Closerest.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's right there in the zone, right? Yeah, so it
And
kind
there's
of
even a conspiracy theory that maybe China is eyeing to somehow occupy Okinawa. And I think there's even been some rhetoric that China has played into the Okinawan history of not previously being part of Japan as a, hey guys, water's cool over here. You
Yeah.
can have your own kingdom, just like Taiwan.
yeah. Oh wow. Yeah, I mean, in speaking to these friends from Okinawa, there's definitely it's definitely on their radar, and they're all pretty worried about the current situation. So
We need a hero to solve this problem. But not just any hero. It needs to be the Quad.
So yeah, I mean, for now, we just watched the reality TV show that's playing out with the U.S. elections and see whoever wins. I think at this point, personally, I think it's a toss-up, 50-50. I don't think there's any way to predict anything right now.
There's definitely some tossing going on. That's a joke for our Commonwealth listeners.
Yeah, so.
On next week's new episode of America!
Fuck yeah!
Coming to screw up the election again, man!
Everyone's just waiting for the American election. Dude, I'm getting so many messages from, people from India, from people, who have never been to the States, sending me stuff about the U.S. and news about Trump. And I'm just like, oh my God. I've started ignoring all these messages. That can be the one annoying thing, right? Being an American in Japan is like, we're a representative of this country that is just kind of, things are just going crazy, right? So
The weight is very heavy.
yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah.
I moved to Japan a decade ago. What do you think I think?
Yeah, exactly.
Think about that, brah.
Hey, listeners, that's right. You listener right there.
Who do you think should be our next guest on Tokyo Wave? Let us know. Drop us a line at wave@tokyowave.jp.
We hope you enjoyed Tokyo Wave.
If you haven't already, you can subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and YouTube.
Join us again next week on Tokyo Wave.